when you invest in African Americans in some of the most marginalized areas, everyone wins. Everyone benefits. Because when you open up the opportunities, especially African American women, we see others' vulnerabilities. We are very sensitive to the needs of others. Like when situation was going on at the border with children in cages, we know a thing or two about what it's like to be brought to this country in inhumane conditions. I think it's important when you think about the most marginalized group in this country, it benefits every minority group to invest in some of the most affected folks, because we don't forget. I don't forget. I know what it's like to be underestimated. I know what it's like to be discriminated against.
I don't think people really know to the extent that a lot of enslaved people made up especially the early years, workforce at the White House, that enslaved people built the White House, in addition to many other parts of Washington, D.C. Wholly ingrained into White House history. And then even after that, after emancipation, in our society, African Americans were deemed to be people of servitude. So having these positions was something that was considered appropriate for African Americans, especially to be maids, butlers, and cooks. Because what we find is that even though the Black vote, at least Black men, were able to vote in the 1870s and stuff, the Black vote was not really rewarded with positions in the administration. Usually people got low-level positions, and that was a sign of progress. So racism, white supremacy still reigned, even though African Americans had made some progress in terms of political power.
If your White House does not depict what America looks like, then how are you going to understand and have a great pulse of what's going on in the country? So Barack Obama started that way before, well, let's say 2 years before he even ran for president, when he initiated this program called the Yes We Can Political Training Program, which I was part of. And the whole goal of the program was to educate and train minorities, people of color, on all aspects of governing, because he wanted to ensure that, as what he noticed was, as he ascended in his political career, he stopped seeing people that looked like him. So he wanted to make sure that there were minorities that were actually getting the training needed and education needed to actually be qualified for these jobs. As an African American who grew up poor, I can tell you I never interned in my life because I could not afford to do anything for free, which meant I would never sort of look at interning in DC as a gateway to help me within my career, because there was no money associated with it. That has changed, where the Hill has worked, or you have members who, without having sort of the law in place that pays interns $15 an hour, so I am pretty sure if you took a poll and asked people, hey, what do you think about an internship on the Hill in a predominantly African American community, they would say the same thing that I said when I was 18. I can't work for free.
I'm waiting to see more representation. It's not that there is a lack of talent. I think, there's a lack of access to the opportunity pipeline, because really for some of these positions, it makes sense to go with people who have served previously or who have come up through the ranks.
That is where I think administrations can do a better job in terms of diversity. Is, there aren't sometimes a lot of people in entry-level jobs, or you don't see a lot of people who are moving up, people of color who are moving up to more senior roles. A lot of people have to leave and get experience elsewhere or go to school and come back. So I will say that that's like the one area I wish people would sort of lean into, because pay's not amazing. And it's hard financially. And it was for me. And so I think there are a lot of factors that don't make these jobs that appealing to people of color. And so I think that administrations have to do a little better there. I think people are hopeful, especially with Vice President Harris. And I think everything that, you know, the two of them committed to and promised during the campaign is, I think there is hope that there will start progress again and keep that moving. But then you're always nervous about what's going to happen after 4 years. So I think that if anything, people are hopeful that things will be better. I think, of course, a ton has happened in the last 4 years that, you know, there clearly needs to be a lot more work than I think anyone ever anticipated with the Biden administration, and as public as they have been with their appointments. I think you're seeing that they're placing a priority on people of color, women of color. And I think that means things are getting better, that diversity is important, and they are making it important. They're making it known that this is important to them. And I think that if they're, you know, the country is changing in terms of the demographic, and you want to make sure that you have a White House and an administration that reflects that. And I think that citizens who elect people and expect them to appoint people, I think they hope that it reflects what America looks like, which is pretty diverse. And so I do think that it has gotten better over time, and will continue to.
We still have so many African Americans oppressed. And so until we really have a more perfect union where African Americans feel like they are equal participants in the society, you know, we still have work to do.
I remember what it was like coming into work after the death of Trayvon Martin, Tamir Rice, Philando Castile, Sandra Bland. You know, it is still very much so difficult, because you feel a weight and responsibility. At the same time, you also know that you can be victim to some of the discrimination that you're trying to work on policy around.